Welcome to this webinar about the medical device regulation. I'm really happy to be here today to animate this event with my colleague Gary, who is the quality manager at ValoTec. My name is Dominique. I'm experienced of more than 17 years of medical devices development, and I'm the head of the Department of Regulatory Affairs at ValoTec. So we are starting a webinar which duration is about 1 hour. If you have any question, please wait for the end of this presentation. We will take the time to answer to your question. So let me detail the outline of this webinar. In the first part, I will quickly introduce ValoTec and describe the experience that is ours and which legitimizes us to present this webinar today. In the second part, I will speak about the medical device regulation, its requirement and expectations. Then I will address the standards, I think, to fulfill the requirements of the regulation. And finally, Gary will introduce the quality management system. So let's get started with ValoTec. So ValoTec is a 19 years old service company, and we are a spin-off of the famous French École Normale Supérieure. Our job is to design and manufacture devices. Most of them are medical devices, and this activity is based on our 4 historic skills, which are the electronics, the software, the mechanics, and the regulation, of course. Today, more than 80% of our business is generated in the medical sector, with every type of customers, 30% of large companies and 70% of startups, small and medium enterprises. And at ValoTec, we incubate all the devices we develop, and therefore, all our staff, about 25%, is gathered in our offices in Villejuif, located in the south of Paris. ValoTec can handle for its customers' projects from the ID to the production, but most of the time we complement our customers' teams to perform engineering tasks corresponding to our skills. And in addition, and strong being certified 13485 and ISO 9001, we can produce pre-series and small series of devices. Since the beginning, we participated on the development of more than 50 medical devices, and 15 of which developed from end to end. The devices we worked on were related to a variety of medical areas, such as cardiology, dermatology, diabetes, neurology, sterilization, so on. Regarding the complexity of the device, it goes from the most cost optimized or the most battery life optimized device, which is sold in drugstores, to a big medical device needing high power or including advanced functions such as regulation algorithm, augmented reality, very high-speed internal communication, and so on. And we had the opportunity to work on devices of all classes of risk according to the regulation. We will see what this means in few minutes, from class 1 to class 3, and it goes from patient-safe diagnostic equipment to intrusive devices such as neural implant or visual regain device. Okay, so now let's walk through the medical device regulation. I will start this part slowly by introducing some contextual elements. The Europe is born with the Treaty of Roma in 1957, and since the beginning, its goal is to prevent war by promoting economic exchanges. And in this context, the European states have set up a common market based on the free movement of goods and a principle of mutual recognition. And this means that a product available in the European states can be marketed in every other European state. To make this possible, the European countries have agreed on a legislative text which force the manufacturers to manufacture their products according to certain rules in terms of quality of products, worker and environment respect, organization, and so on. And the objective of this legislative text are, among others, to ensure the product safety and to comply with health and environmental policies. This legislation is carried out by means of directives or regulation, and some of them impose to affix the CE mark, which is the case of the medical device regulation. With this CE mark, the companies certify the conformity of their product with the requirement of the legislative text, and it is mandatory to comply with the regulation because this is what allows the free movement of a product throughout the territory of the Union. The European regulation is organized in activity sectors. You can find a complete list of all the regulated sector on the European portal, and it goes from food, toys, chemical substances, and up to automotive and pacing, of course, by medical devices. So each manufacturer has to identify the relevant sector by checking the definitions in the various regulations or directives, and to apply its requirements. And depending on the sector, the regulation is more or less demanding, so it is important to position yourself properly according to your product and or your project constraints to ease your effort. For example, the medical regulation is known as more demanding than the low voltage directive. So ensure that your device and the application match with the definition provided in the medical regulation. So let's focus on the medical regulation. And I think that a small history overview helps to understand where the regulation comes from and what are its expectations. So the medical regulation has its roots at the end of the Second World War, and the first will was to prevent against intolerable experimentations on human beings, and this resulted in the Helsinki Declaration in 1964. Otherwise, in the 50s, sedatives, of which the thalidomide, were administered in the population, including pregnant women, leading to congenital malformation. You can see the picture on the screen. And this strategy accelerated the regulation process of the medical sector, which resulted in a text concerning the pharmaceutical product in 1965. And this text contained 5 pages, 25 articles, but we already found there the modern general principle we will meet again in the medical device regulation, principles such as the identification of the manufacturers, the composition of a product, constraints related to the labeling, indication and contraindication, performance evaluation, and of course, safety tests. In 1990, the first directive for the manufacture of active implantable system is issued. In 93, the one for the medical devices. In 98, the directive for the in vitro diagnosis medical devices. And at last, in 2017, the directives of both medical devices and the one of the active implantable systems were merged and updated into the regulation of the medical device we will see now. To enable the regulation policy, the European administration has set up various bodies Each one has its role, and you as a manufacturer must understand their mission to ease the certification process. So the first one is the European Commission, who write the directives and the regulation. Then there is the standardization bodies, who are expert committees and shall write the standards that answer to the directives and the regulation. Some example of standardization bodies are IEC, ISO, CENELEC, and so on. The safety authority in red is a kind of the police of the sector, medical device, for example. It monitors the market to prevent against safety risk and can require product recall. It also allows the clinical test and can provide some good practices. Notified bodies on their side is a European specificity. It doesn't exist in the US, for example. It is an organization that has been appointed by a member state to assess the conformity of a product related to a sector. This body is involved for critical applications and check the conformity element of the device. When a device complies with the regulation, the notified body authorizes the manufacturer to affix the CE mark. And some example of notified body are GMED in France, BSI in United Kingdom, TÜV in Germany, and so on. You can find a complete list on the NANDO website, sector by sector. Certified body. There is a difference between notified body and certified body. So certified body are required to perform the test on device or processes according to referential described in the standards. And at last, there is the manufacturers and the patients. Before diving into the European regulation, I would like to summarize the journey of a medical device and the main activities that shall be performed. I also would like to point out that there are various possible paths to do that. The one shown here is the most widespread one and allows to detail the main task you could meet. So there is two main streams of activities symbolized by the green arrow for the development of the device and with the purple arrow for the quality management setup. It starts on the left with a product ID, and both streams of activity should be started early in the project development. On the device development stream, the first set of activities in the blue bubble is the device development in itself. During this task, the manufacturer not only has to develop its device, but also to identify all the relevant standards and to produce all the proof of compliance. For example, the risk analysis, the design reports, specification, safety tests, and so on. If clinical tests are required, the manufacturer should gather within a brochure investigator all the available data and proofs of compliance produced during the development of the device to provide this evidence to safety to the safety authority in red in the previous illustration. The brochure investigator should also include the purpose of the clinical tests, the test protocol, and so on. This brochure investigator is audited by the safety authority, who is responsible to allow or not the clinical tests. Then the manufacturer performs its clinical test to prove the claims, and according to a protocol, provided in the brochure investigator. In parallel, on the purple arrow, the manufacturer should set up its quality management system, which goal is to provide evidences that the manufacturer is able to work according to the European requirements. The activities related to these tasks are, for example, the establishment of a quality policy, the writing of the quality manual and related procedure, etc. Usually, the quality management system should be audited and validated by a certification body that provide a certificate, but Gary will detail that later in the last part of this webinar. Once the clinical trial are completed, that all the safety evidence are gathered, that your quality management system is certified, the manufacturer set all the data related to its product within a technical file, and this file is analyzed by the notified body, which allows the manufacturer to apply the CE mark. And once the CE mark is applied, product can be commercialized. Keep in mind that the safety authority watches the market and the quality management system is periodically audited, and note the difference between the device development stream, the green arrow, and the quality management stream, the purple arrow. The certification of the device allows to prove that the device is compliant with the regulation, while the quality management system allows to prove that you, as a manufacturer, are able to work according to the regulation requirements, and therefore to duplicate the certified device and to commercialize this device. But we will see that in detail in the next slide. I said earlier that the regulation relies on legislative text such as directive and regulation. All these texts are freely accessible on the European website. But what I didn't said is that several texts can be relevant at the same time. For example, a medical device, including, for example, Bluetooth communication, should comply with the medical device regulation, but also with the radio equipment directive because of the Bluetooth. So you as manufacturer should identify and apply all the relevant text. Concerning the medical device regulation, it has two main requirements that we will repeat again and again all along this webinar. The first one is to have a safe operation, which means limiting the hazards and risks for the patient and the practitioner. And the second one is to reach the claim performance, which means that the manufacturer should provide the evidence, the demonstration of the clinical treatment, of a diagnostic, and so on. All directives and regulations provide definitions to evaluate if your device enters or not, in its application field. We could summarize the definition of a medical device as a device helping a person to recover, or providing a diagnostic related to a disease, or controlling a treatment, or performing some other action in this mindset. The definition is quite large. A medical device can also take different shape. For example, it can be a standalone equipment. It also can be an assembly of several devices connected together. It can be passive, it can be active, it can be a software alone, etc. Moreover, the regulation introduces the notion of medical device accessory, which is an article not being a medical device itself, but required to enable a medical device. For example, the charger of an implant, imagine an implant with a battery and it needs a charger. The charger doesn't help anyone to recover, but as the implant is not able to work without the charger should be considered as a medical device accessory, and therefore the regulation is relevant. The medical device regulation also provides a definition of a manufacturer. This is the one who benefits from the marketing of a device. In other words, this is the one who earns money with the device. For example, at ValoTec, we are not considered as a manufacturer, as we build the devices for our customers who have the benefits of our development. And it is interesting to see that the medical device regulation doesn't consider the suppliers. This is the manufacturer who is responsible of its supply chain. The regulation provides the general obligation of a manufacturer. This obligation are some overall tasks such as declaration, technical or administrative tasks mandatory to put a device on the market. There is 16 obligations such as to conduct a clinical evaluation, to draw up a technical file, to implement and keep up a post-market survey system, get a unique identifier, etc., etc. This obligation should be assumed all along the device life. And these obligations are detailed all along the text, the regulation. And for example, the way to conduct the clinical trial is described in Article 61. The content of the technical file in Annex 2. And the general safety and performance requirements are detailed in Annex 1. This obligation includes 23 main requirements and many sub-requirements. And as written in the title, there is two main purposes we already said and we will repeat. The first one is to provide evidence that the claims are reached. And the second one is to demonstrate that the device is safe. The demonstration of the safety includes technical topics such as electrical safety tests, software development cycle, physical property of material testing, etc. But also some more, let's say, conceptual topics such as a risk analysis or usability study. We will have the opportunity to speak about that in a coming other webinar. And as the description of this requirement is very general, it is appropriate to justify the compliance with this requirement using one or several standards. But we will see that in detail in the standards section in the third part of this webinar. The evidences of the conformity to the safety, the evidences of the performance and the document related to the obligations of the manufacturer should be gathered in the technical file. This technical file is described in Annex 2 and should be divided in 6 parts. The first one is related to the general description and includes the intended use, for example, but also description of similar devices and, of course, a description of your device itself. The second part is related to the information provided to the users and, for example, the labelings or the user's guide. The third part is related to the design and includes design drawings, design reports, specification, diagram of components, circuit, subassembly, etc. The fourth part is related to the safety performances and includes tests and proofs of the conformity relative to the regulation. For example, test certificates from a certified body. The part 5 is related to the risk management, and the part 6 related to the test. Technical tests you can perform at your office to provide evidence that your device works as expected. Tests on animals and clinical tests on human beings. The regulation defines 4 classes of risk. The risk level generated by your device is assessed depending on its specificities, such as the part of the body concerned, if the device is intrusive or not, if the level of energy, if your device works with drug, for example, and so on. The lowest risk class includes safe device, such as glasses, knee pad, bandage, and so on. And the highest one includes devices considered as the most hazardous ones, for example, pacemaker, implants, etc. All medical devices should be classified according to this scale. And we have to understand what changes depending on this case for your device. So what changes is the conformity assessment procedure. This means that all the requirements of the regulation belong the same. For example, your device should be safe, the performance should be demonstrated, and even the standard used could be the same, whatever the device class. The difference relies, let's say, on the deepness of the inspection of the technical file. For example, a device belonging to class 1 can be auto-certified, while a device with a higher risk class need a notified body. But for both cases, risk analysis should be performed. Basic safety according, for example, IEC 60601 should be performed. Usability study should be performed. Software development process according to, for example, IEC 62304 should be done. Okay, and you can find the classification rules in Annex 8 of the medical device regulation. There is plenty of database that you can freely consult to confirm your device class, considering your competitors or similar devices. Sorry, but caution: this check is not intended to replace your class analysis using the Annex 8, but to increase the confidence level on your analysis and to provide some arguments for discussion with notified body. I just said that the device class impact the process of conformity assessment. So let's go deeper in this explanation. The legislator led the opportunity to a manufacturer to use 3 strategies to be compliant with the regulation. And these 3 strategies correspond roughly to the 3 Annex 9, 10, and 11, which provide various ways to perform the conformity assessment. In all cases, the technical file should be available. The main difference between the 3 conformity assessment processes lies on the manner to demonstrate that, let's say, your production is correct. Annex 9 requires an assessment of the conformity based on the quality management system, which is a kind of recognition by the authorities that you have the correct working methods, and you are able to make a production. Annex 10 is based on verification of representative samples of the production to verify that your production processes are compliant. And Annex 11 requires either a verification of the production system itself, or a verification of each manufactured devices. To illustrate that, Annex 9 requires a first certified device and a quality management system to demonstrate the capability of a manufacturer to duplicate. This is suitable for, let's say, for example, low-cost products manufactured at large scale, such as electrostimulation devices, glucometers, and so on. On its side, Annex 11, which requires a whole production inspection, is more suitable to small series of very expensive products. Have in mind MRI, for example, or hyperbaric chambers. And this is very interesting when a manufacturer wants to save the implementation of the quality management system. And also, when considering this kind of device very expensive with a lot of features, we can even imagine that there is small variation between two products, which is a nonsense from a quality point of view. Last slide concerning the regulation is the way to demonstrate the performance. Now, there is two pathways to provide performance evidences. The first one is to use the literature, comparing, for example, with similar device using the same principle, or based on scientific articles validating a physical effect, for example. But the first one is the literature. And the second one is the clinical testing. Test the working principle on the human according to the protocol validated scientifically with the safety authorities. Of course, the clinical trials are the most difficult one and the most expensive one. The FDA issued a white paper in 2010 providing some cost elements on medical devices development. And what is interesting in this paper is that half of the development price is related to the clinical trial. Okay, this is big stone. Also remind that the clinical evaluation is only the first step of a process allowing to demonstrate the performance of the device, and this process shall continue all along the device life. So, okay, we completed the part concerning the medical regulation. So let's speak now about the standards. The first thing I would like to say is that unlike the regulations or the directives, the standards are not mandatory. That said, the standards represent the state of the art of the topic, and complying with the standards is the easiest way to demonstrate the compliance of a device to a technical point. In Article 8 of the medical device regulation, so the Article 8 indicates that the conformity can be demonstrated using standards, and especially the one published in the official journal of the Union. And this list of relevant standards is accessible on the medical device regulation webpage, and for each directive or each regulation, you can find the related list of standards of the said directives or regulation webpage. So you as manufacturer must identify in this list the relevant standard and to apply them. The table shown on the slide, on the right of the slide, shows an extract of this journal. This is a list with the numbers of the standard, for example, the ISO 14971 with the title Application Risk Management to Medical Devices. In parallel, you can consult the FDA database to confirm your standard list. FDA is the US Safety Authority, but also the regulation is not the same. The standards used to demonstrate the compliance are quite the same. We'll see in a few minutes why. And as their database is used for a long time compared to Europe, you can find there plenty useful information concerning your competitors' products, for example, to ease the building of your European technical file. I said that the manufacturer can justify the conformity to general safety and performance requirements by applying one or several standards. Usually, a manufacturer establishes a table listing all the regulation requirements detailed in Annex 1 of the regulation. And if a requirement is applicable, the manufacturer associates to this requirement the relevant standards, one of several. You can see here on this slide an example of such table. In the first column, there is the number of the general safety and performance requirements found in Annex 1 of the medical devices regulation. In the second column, there is the requirement description, also in Annex 1. The third column indicates if the requirement is applicable or not. The fourth one justifies why the requirement is not applicable if it isn't. The fifth column indicates how to fulfill the requirement when applicable. And the sixth column lists all the relevant standards to demonstrate the compliance with the requirement. Please notice that several standards may be required to demonstrate the compliance to one requirement, and at the opposite, one standard can answer to several requirements. So there is a kind of matrix. So let's speak a little more about the standards. A standard is a reference document containing rules, features, recommendations, good practices related to product, service, methods, processes, organization, and so on. And the purpose of the standard is to help the manufacturer to fulfill specific points of the regulation in various domains, such as the basic safety, risk analysis, software development, quality management, we'll see with Gary, etc. And as the standards represent the state of the art, they are the most valuable demonstration of the compliance to a requirement. Moreover, when a technical point is addressed, such as basic safety, for example, using the IEC 60601, or maybe the biocompatibility if you use the ISO 10993, a certificate is issued by the certified body who is in charge of the test according to the relevant standard, and these certificates are joined to the technical file, allowing to ease the evaluation of the conformity with the notified body. I said earlier that the standards are written by standardization bodies. These are a group of experts having the knowledge of sectors, and these experts are supposed to understand and able to anticipate the challenges of the sector. The goal of the standardization process is to create rules, that benefits to the entire community. And have in mind that the standardization body have various scopes that can be international, regional or national. And concerning the medical device, most standards used are written by international standardization bodies, such as IEC or ISO, to ease the compliance with other geographic area, North America, for instance. And this is why you can check the standards list on the FDA webpage. If we consider the example of a muscle stimulator that a patient can use for physical recovery, but also for relax or pain release, we can imagine that the following standards just related to basic safety are relevant, just for the basic safety. Donc, IEC 60601-1 for the general requirement, IEC 60601-1-2 concerning the electromagnetic compatibility, IEC 60601-1-6 for the usability, but we'll see that this is an empty shell called another standard, we will see. IEC 60601-1-11 because this device is used at home by laypersons, and IEC 60601-2-10, which is a particular standards of the IEC 60601 and dedicated for nerves and muscle stimulators. In addition to the basic safety standards, you can have to apply various standards for other topics. For example, the ISO 14971 for the risk management, the IEC 62304 for the medical device software development, the IEC 62366-1 for the usability. This is the one that the IEC 60601-1-6 calls. The IEC 62133, if you have in your device some lithium battery, ISO 10993-1 for the biocompatibility, etc., etc., etc. Please notice that the list here is far from exhaustive, as for instance, the electromagnetic compatibility standard, the IEC 60601-1-2, requires a bundle of other standards that I didn't list here. We saw that the regulation can advise standards through the publication made in the official journal of the Europe, but some standards also explicitly call other standards for specific topics, included or not in the official journal of the Europe standard list. For example, the IEC 60601, which is in a family of standards composed by dozens of texts whose applicability depends on the device characteristics or purpose, calls additional standards, someone listed in the Journal of the Union, such as the ISO 14971 for the risk analysis, the one for the usability, the one for the software development process, but also some other standards not listed in the official journal of the Union, such as the IEC 62311 for the lithium battery, or the family of standard IEC 61000 for the electromagnetic compatibility. But we will have the opportunity to speak a little more about these standards in coming other webinars. At last, before I let the stage to Gary, I would like to say that whatever is the medical device developed, the regulation imposes a workflow which, when not followed, increases significantly the time to market, the development effort, and therefore the cost of the project. So the first step when developing a medical device is to define a claim, one or several, but if you define several claims, every claim should be demonstrated, and functional specifications. In other words, you have to answer the question what the device should do, and is it really a medical device? Does it treat a disease? The second step is to apply the regulation requirements. This consists in applying all we saw during this webinar. For example, identify the device class, fulfill the manufacturer obligation, identify the requirements according to Annex 1 of the regulation, and identify the associated standards that fulfill this requirement. Then, as the usability is a cornerstone of medical device development, should be start early in the project to get the definition of the user interface. In parallel, a risk analysis is also mandatory, whatever the device class, and should be start soon to identify the risk control means. And a first iteration on basic safety standard is useful to get the main requirements, for example, electrical insulation in terms of leakage currents or accessible parts maximum temperature. When the functional specifications are written, that the usability outputs are available, that the risk control means are identified, and that the basic safety constraints are listed, the technical specifications can be written. Once you have the technical specification, the engineering process can start with the design activities, the development of a proof of concept or a prototype, and up to the integration tests. When your prototype is ready, the traceability is up to date, your device can then be tested by certified bodies. And then you should follow the certification process shown earlier, so approbation for the clinical test, the clinical trial, assessment by notified body, and so on. And at last, CE mark can be issued, and the device is ready for the production. So now we are moving to the quality management system, and I'll let the stage to Gab.
So, hello again, everyone. So the objective of this presentation is to give you an overview of the quality management system and also the quality management system in the medical device industry. I know that quality is not often seen as the most exciting topics, so I ask you to be brave. My presentation is supposed to last only 15 minutes. If you have any question, please save them until the end of the presentation, and I do my best to respond. Before anything else, to make things clear, I'll try to explain what is QMS. So QMS is a discipline grouping concepts and activities to meet the requirements of a professional sectors. It can be medical, automotive, or avionics. And QMS can be based on international standards, or in extreme cases, on an in-house method. QMS defines a set of processes and responsibilities that makes your business run how it's supposed to. And each organization tailors its own SMQ with its specificities, comprising a formal set of policies, processes, and procedures established to elevate customer satisfaction and/or patient safety. QMS standardizes, enhances quality control across manufacturing, service delivery, and other key business processes. Now that we've seen what is a QMS, let me tell you what is the purpose of QMS. QMS is used for consistency in quality. So having a standardized process helps to produce standardized output. Patient safety. So in the case of medical device industry, QMS helps the company to develop and commercialize medical device in a well-structured fashion. Customer satisfaction. Standards like the ISO 9001 help to implement QMS that serve customer satisfaction and help the company to improve itself toward its goals. Risk reduction. So QMS defines a frame and provide tools to help to properly manage the risks. That's the purpose of the QMS. Operational efficiency. So by implementing effective quality management practices, organization can minimize errors, reduce waste, and enhance overall productivity. Continuous improvement, because it's one of the core concepts of many, if not all, QMS. Regulatory compliance. Having a recognized QMS makes the product certification easier. Enhance reputation, because the way you manage quality inside your company can directly affect how your clients and your providers or your partners see you. And finally, employee engagement, because QMS can improve employee engagement by defining clear expectations and roles, by developing a continuous improvement culture, fostering trainings, and by promoting communication across all levels of organization. Now, as you imagine, quality has a cost, and it's true. More precisely, there is two types of cost, the cost of good quality and the cost of poor quality. Most of the time, people immediately think about the cost of good quality. And the cost of good quality comprise prevention costs and appraisal costs. In prevention costs, you can find, for example, quality planning, contract review, trainings, quality audit, etc. In appraisal costs, you can find incoming goods inspection, in-process inspection, etc. At this point, you might think that quality is only an item of expenditure. However, you must know that the absence of quality or poor quality can cost a lot. And this cost can come from internal failure or external failure. In the case of internal failure, it can be rework, repair, internal scrap, etc. And in the case of external failure, it can be warranty claims, customer visits, penalties, etc. Now that we've seen what is quality, what its purpose, and we talk about its cost, let me quickly present a brief history of quality. The goal here is just to show you that quality as we know it today is not so new. There are many key dates in the quality history, but I've chosen ones that stand out the most for me. And it starts in 1901 with the creation of BSI, the formalization of statistical method in the 20s. In the 15, the creation of the PDCA method, Plan, Do, Check, Act method, creation of the TQM, so Total Quality Management method in Japan, the creation in the 80s, in the 80s of the famous ISO 9001, the Six Sigma method, and the creation in the 19 of the ISO 13481, which is the one about quality management system. We'll talk about that later on. And most recently, in 2015, the introduction of a risk-based approach in the ISO 9001. And finally, last year, a standard about artificial intelligence and quality management systems appeared. So it's a long story. Okay, so now let's focus on the core of this presentation. It's the standard, the ISO 13485 standards. So these standards defines the requirements of quality management system for medical devices. Quality management system for medical devices refers to the systems and process put in place to ensure that medical device meet regulatory requirements. So these standards include requirement for managing the entire life cycle of a medical devices, from the design, development to manufacturing, distribution, and even post-market surveillance. It allows to fulfill the European regulation concerning medical device production. These standards can be applied from anything from one person company to a multinational company with thousands of employees. And you have to know that equivalent standards exist for other professional sectors. Now I listed here some popular beliefs that I have to talk about before going further in the presentation. So let's go through it quickly. The first popular belief is that QMS, according to ISO 13485, is mandatory for class 1 medical devices. That is not true. Quality management system is mandatory, but not necessarily this one. Number two, the ISO 13485 describe how the manufacturer must satisfy its customer. That's not true. It defines the requirement that must be fulfilled to produce medical devices. It's not focused on customer satisfaction. And number three, quality insurance refers to a third party that should pay in case of production failure. That's not true. Quality assurance is just a set of activities. Number four, quality, the management is not involved and only the production team is involved. That is not true, because the management is also involved. It provides the quality policy, review the key indicators, and fine-tune the organization to improve quality insurance. Number five, the standards provide acceptance criteria for the SMQ, and when these acceptance criteria are not achieved, the QMS cannot be validated. That's not true, because the standards only describe general requirements for an organization. And finally, the standard only address organization and people. That's not true, because it's also about manufacturing infrastructure, software, factory equipment, etc. Okay. So you may have heard of the ISO 9001 standards, as many companies in the world claims to be certified on these standards, even in their marketing materials. So this standards is still active and widely recognized. It's not specific to a particular industry, so you can find it in information technology, transport, etc. It's focused on customer satisfaction and continuous improvement. To do so, it has a process approach, including the Plan, Do, Check, Act, and is also risk-based. In short, the Plan, Do, Check, Act that I mentioned earlier is a 4-step iterative approach process to continuously improve the business and the project management. And the risk-based approach in this standard is just a proactive way to ensure that quality and process are efficient. On the other side, the ISO 13485 standards can be seen as the medical version of the ISO 9001. It contains additional medical device requirements, greater documentation, safety requirements, etc. And without going into much details, I will say that the main key differences between the two standards are that one is industry focus, and the other one is general. So the ISO 9001 is general, and the other one is medical device focus. The ISO 13481 includes more rigorous requirements and has a stronger focus on risk management throughout the life cycle of the medical devices. Okay, so I just mentioned the process approach to describe how the standard works, and I have to tell you some few words about the process approach. The process approach is a core concept of both the standards, and it considers that a company is an entity made up of subunits called process. For example, it can be design, production, testing, or distribution. Each activity of the company that impacts the quality product or the QMS itself is viewed as an interconnected process. A process is a set of activities with inputs and outputs. It requires people and material resources. It's based on methods, and these methods can be and must be documented. And finally, processes are monitored through indicators. Now, if we apply this process approach on a fictional company, you can have the following process mapping shown here. So in general, we have three types of process. We have management process, execution process, and support process. Sometimes you have a fourth one, which is measure process. And here, these three types of process are represented here. So you can have steering and strategy, marketing, legal, human resources, etc. Okay. As we said in ISO 13485, what is not written does not exist. So all these processes that we've seen just before must be documented. The starting point of the QMS documentation is the quality manual. It describes the whole QMS, its exclusion, we'll talk about that later, the main procedure, etc. Just below, we have the standard operating procedures, the SOPs, that explain how to do the work. Then we have the templates and form. And finally, when a template and a form is completed, it becomes a record. This is what we call the document pyramid. And you have to know that the QMS should not be a static set of documents. It must be regularly reviewed and updated to ensure its effectiveness. Furthermore, the ISO 13485 standards require 31 documented procedures. These documented procedures are the pillar of the quality management system. It's not necessarily 31 different documents, but one document, for example, can contain multiple mandatory procedures. Okay, here you can show some example. You can see some example of these mandatory procedures. All right, I showed you in the document pyramid templates and form. Okay, it was just between the SOPs and the records. Templates and forms are not mandatory. However, it's easier when they exist. For example, when you have to write a report, you just have to copy an existing template, which already contains all the information you need to directly write your report. And here you have a list, of common templates in a QMS. Okay. We have seen that many documents exist and everything must be written or saved somewhere. And here you have some choices. You can use a paper-based system or a digital-based system. If you go for a digital-based system, you can use just a simple server as a shared repository, or you can go to an electronic document management system. And I listed, it's not specific to ISO 13485, but it's a great help to organize the documentation in this context. And I listed here some advantages of the using such a tool for your QMS. When you implement the ISO 13485, you can choose to exclude some part of the standards, because all of the standards does not necessarily apply to your QMS. So we talk about, in this case, scope exclusion. So it's the case when you deliberately exclude some scope of certification from your QMS. You have to know that this exists. Okay. So before I finish, I have to talk about two things, the MDSAP and the example of ValoTec in the ISO 13485. Let's start with the MDSAP. So ISO 13485 is an international standard and it's very common in Europe, for example. However, if you aim to sell your medical device in certain countries, you must be compliant with certain local requirements. And this is where the MDSAP comes into play. The MDSAP is an international program audit designed to streamline the audit process for medical devices manufacturer. It allows a single regulatory audit for a medical device manufacturer to cover multiple regulatory jurisdictions. And it was developed taking into account the constraints of the 5 countries you see here. So when you are MDSAP certified, it's like being ISO 13485 certified plus being certified on the specific requirements of these countries. And if you go to this certification or this audit, you have to know that the audit duration is longer with MDSAP. Finally, the last thing I want to share with you is our experience with the ISO 13485 certification. It all begins in 2011 for ValoTec. So it took 1 year to set up the quality management system because we had the double reference. Okay? We are also ISO 9001 certified. All the team was involved from the start. New members are made aware of the QMS as soon as they arrive. There are at least two annual audits, one internal audit to prepare the certification and one external audit to be certified. There are periodic quality reviews, so it's internal process. There are one annual management review. And depending on our clients and our project, there can be one or multiple annual client audits. We define multiple key indicators to follow the process. There are one quality manager, which is me, one quality engineer for a total of 25 people. All the activities are documented, and it's about 250 documents to document all of our activities. And finally, everyone in the team can suggest improvements and can report and document non-conformities in our systems. So that's it for me. I hope that you have benefited from this presentation and that you learned a lot from it. Thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, Dominique and I will be delighted to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, Dominique and Gary. It's time for questions. So if somebody wants to, Anna, go ahead, Anna. Did you raise a hand? No. Gernot from LBG.
Yes, thank you very much for this very interesting introduction in the MDR system and in the quality management system. From my side, it's rather a comment on our project. In one of the slides, there was a very essential claim that all of this has to start with the claims and the functions and the products that we are planning to develop over here. And that's actually what we are discussing now quite a lot, like what kind of standardizations we might use. However, within our project, we still have not decided yet all these claims and functions that might apply within our project. And so my wish would be that we at least discuss this in great detail in the upcoming meeting in Paris, so that we really know like what kind of products we are developing. For example, we have two different lines of products here. On the one hand, we have the sensor development. For the sensor development, different standards might apply if for the medical case or if it's on a lifestyle case for the sports case. And then we also have like this artificial intelligence application, which is basically a software development where different sets of standards might apply. And I just would recommend that we discuss this in great detail in the upcoming meeting. Thanks a lot.
With pleasure.
Yeah, we can do that when you come in Paris. We can discuss that in detail, of course.
Okay. Any other question? So I think that's everything is clear. So, you know, that area is medical regulations. Nowadays, where miniaturizations of the devices are just, I mean, on the field, and where artificial intelligence algorithms are running on edge. It's a what I try to say is not very easy to find the way to standardize a product because most of the developments are in between clinical or no clinical usability. So in November, now in Paris, we are going to decide the technology demonstrator leaders, and also we come back again to use cases in order to know exactly in this area, in the area of standardization, what kind of standards we are going to use for the new devices that we are developing now.
Yeah.
So if no questions there, so it's time to sorry, Anna.
Yes,
Anna.
thank you. Thank you for the presentation, and I'm glad to see that everything doesn't have to be ready before you do some sort of trial. You know that the trial is necessary for the certification, but it would be, yes, good to know how soon and with which demonstrators we can start evaluations early on in the process, and with which do we have to wait until we have the requirements for the testing?
Usually, the clinical testing the clinical evaluation can be started soon using the literature. So this is the first step. You can check scientific articles validating physiologic effect and so on. So this can be started very early in the project. Then to test on human, you should have the prototype itself. So it should be developed, and you should then test according to basic safety. For example, you should do the usability. It is quite always asked now, and of course the risk analysis. So the clinical trials is a cornerstone when you are developing a medical device, and there can be several steps of clinical trials, and we have some customers who have developed 2, 3, 4 versions just for clinical trials to test some aspects, one or several aspects of what they are claiming. Of course, this take times, and at the end, the prototype can be. I don't know if it answer your question, but no, it should be start early, and there can be various version of device testing various claims. So it's very depending on the specificities of your device and of course your claims.
Yeah, and my question is more before we sort of have a more advanced finalized prototype, maybe we can use subunits of that prototype and test them as an observational add-on to what is being done already, which would be low risk. So we just observe, is the data coming right? Can we compare it with what is being done? Is it acceptable? That sort of thing. And use it as well as usability that's much earlier than a clinical trial itself, right? So that would be possible to do with some of the demonstrators that are sort of commercially ready, but not applied to health earlier, so that we can sort of just test and compare with what is done. Is this acceptable to the user? Is it acceptable to the healthcare professionals? I don't know. What do you think?
No, it is acceptable, but it depends on your risk of your class risk. Okay. Now, in the last version of in the medical devices regulation, it is mandatory for a manufacturer to have the data to have the data. So you cannot just compare to another manufacturers saying, okay, I do the same, but I do not have the data. This is not accepted anymore by the INSM, for example. So you cannot just do that. And concerning the usability, but it depends on your claims. Once more, I take an example. If you are developing a medical device with the claim that this is the same than my competitors, but my device is more user-friendly, for example. But you have to prove it. Well, you have to make the demonstration, and we will see in the webinar of related to the usability that at the end you have to test the user interface quite in the same conditions than in a clinical trial. It's not so critical. You do not have to ask to the safety authority, but the way it is performed, is quite. It is the same mind.
Thank you.
So, any other questions? So, if no questions, will I just?
I have a question for clarification, simply for clarification.
Okay.
So, this means if I have a prototype and we want to test this prototype for validation purposes, for example, we will develop a sweat sensor and want to test whether this sweat sensor is delivering us with reliable data. We could test it under the minimum condition that we have a risk analysis, a usability analysis, and a basic safety analysis. We don't need an MDR classification yet, simply for validation purposes. Or did I understand this correctly?
Absolutely, absolutely. If you do not expect to reach the market and to be in front of a notified body, you do not have the classification is not. It's okay. You can assess the classification, but it's not required, as it only specifies the deepness of the inspection of the technical file, which will not be assessed as it is at the end, and you will not go at the end of the project. This is true.
Okay, but it would be smart, especially for the manufacturers, because I guess the manufacturers want to go in the direction of putting these products to the market, that we start from the process aiming at medical device regulations, at least for some of our applications.
Yeah, and this is very valuable because it's a work to say, okay, the claim is that one, the standards that should be followed are that one, the device class is this one, and I also gathered all the safety elements within our brochure investigator, because you have to perform the clinical trial, which is a kind of mini technical file.
Yeah. Okay.
Not quite the same, but in the mind, quite of mini.
Yeah. Thank you very much. This was very helpful and enlightening.
So, thank you, ValoTec, for the webinar, and see you.